Hi everyone, and welcome to the Plant Kingdom. Now, probably if you were opening up a presentation on the Plant Kingdom, you'd expect a picture of a great big forest or lots of flowers, and what did I choose? I chose this barren landscape. Now, why would I do something crazy like that? Have any hypothesis? If we were in a face-to-face class, I'd ask you, but I guess in this situation I'll just tell you. But maybe you guessed it anyway. We've spent the whole first part of the course talking about evolution, and hopefully, well, two things. One is I have this mantra, you're not allowed to forget anything in biology. So we just keep building upon what we've already covered. And hopefully you remember that life has been on planet Earth for approximately 3.5 billion years. And it's important and just astounding to realize for the first 3 billion years of our living history, life was solely aquatic. For the first 3 billion years, all life existed in the water. And so if you had a little alien Martian visiting Earth periodically, let's say every 100 million years or something like that PowerPoint you looked at, for most of the history of our planet, this is what our landscape would look like. Just bare rock. Not the Earth we think of with those views from outer space with the land covered with greenery. This would be it. So yes, that helps put plants, I think, into perspective, something that people think, oh, plants, boring. All right, so what is a plant? Some key characteristics of plants are they are multicellular, so they are made out of more than one cell. They are eukaryotic, meaning each cell has a nucleus, and they get their nutrition by photosynthesis. Those are probably the defining characteristics. Other key characteristics are their cell walls are composed of, drumroll, cellulose. Cellulose is a polysaccharide, a carbohydrate. And another characteristics of plants, their chlorophyll molecules are located in the organelle called chloroplast. Chlorophyll is a green pigment that's necessary for photosynthesis, and again, that's the plant's mode of nutrition, photosynthesis. All right, now the question I want to explore are algae plants, because algae have been traditionally put in kingdom Protista, lumped in with the protist. But guess what? Most algae are multicellular eukaryotes. They have cell walls made out of cellulose, and their chlorophyll molecules are located in chloroplast. So are algae plants. All right, so this is where we are. This is one of the two diagrams I showed you before that aren't quite right, but they're worth reviewing. So remember, why is this diagram wrong? All right, we call these organisms just bacteria now, and they're in their own domain. And we call these organisms archaea now, and they're in their own domain. And so we have two domains of life full of organisms that are very small, and they have DNA, of course, but they have no nucleus. And then all the other organisms on planet Earth are put in domain eukaryote, because all of these organisms, they have cells that have a nucleus. All right, now ever since when I started teaching, everybody talked about kingdom Protista, and from the beginning I always thought that was a dumb kingdom, because basically anything that had cells made out of a nucleus that wasn't a plant or an animal or fungi was dumped into kingdom Protista. And now we're in the process of dividing what was the kingdom Protista up into maybe 18 different kingdoms. It's just crazy. But in general, we refer to organisms that are very simple, made of one cell or just a few cells. We just dump them in. We just call them protist. All right. So as we said before, these three kingdoms still remain from the old classification. The plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the fungal kingdom, all in the domain of eukaryote. And we've already introduced you to kingdom fungi, even though we do have to finish this kingdom. In general, we call fungi multicellular eukaryotes, and they get their nutrition, do you remember? By absorption. And even though we call fungi multicellular eukaryotes, and most of them are, I mean, mushrooms are made out of more than one cell, mold are made of more than one cell. Fungi also include yeast, which are unicellular. They're only made up of one cell, yeast. And heck, where would the brewing and baking industry be without yeast cells? All right, So in Animal Kingdom, we are going to talk about for Unit 3, because we're just pretty egocentric, we're going to take a whole test unit to talk about animals. So this is where we are. We're in the plant kingdom today. And again, here's another diagram that I liked, but remember, they store using Kingdom Monera for all prokaryotes. These have been divided into 2 domains, and this is domain eukaryote. But I do like this because it shows you the evolutionary relationship between different groups of protist and animals, fungi, and plants. So when we are slicing and dicing what was Kingdom Protista up, what we have to decide is, well, do we want to extend plants down a little further and include algae? All right, so you know what? The moral of the story is I don't really care, because in my mind, algae probably should be just put in the plant kingdom. So, moral of the story here, we can take the plant kingdom and divide them into 3 main branches: algae, bryophytes, and tracheophytes, which I'll talk in a minute. Or we can say plants are plants and algae are different, and that plants evolve from algae. However, with either scheme, we know that algae were the ancestors of modern-day terrestrial plants. So whether we consider algae plants or not, we are all in agreement that algae, or modern plants, evolved from algae. All right. So what I will do is that was just sort of an orientation to where we are. And just before I go into the plant kingdom, let's just do one more review, because I'm big on review. So remember, when we have these 3 kingdoms of multicellular eukaryotes, they are classified by their mode of nutrition. Fungi digest their food outside their body and absorb it. Animals, we eat our food and then we digest it. And plants make their own food by photosynthesis. So now that you're oriented, you can learn about how we classify plants in the plant kingdom in our next video. See you there.